Good morning, Africa! Well, it's pretty.
It is. And it's hot already.
At 9:20. On my 7th birthday, I got my very first bicycle. And to this day, I can vividly remember that sense of freedom I felt the first time I managed to cycle without support wheels. Now, little did I know back then that many years later, I would explore the world on 2 wheels.
I turned to cycling when I realized that the motorbike I was riding was far too fast. It was actually on my first long bicycle trip that I met Irina in China. I managed to sell her the idea of bicycle touring, and for 20 years now we've been exploring the world from the vantage point of our saddles. This is our Africa story.
Whose idea?
Beats me.
Now, one thing that really intrigues me is who actually came up with the idea of biking through Africa, or some of Africa, for a whole year.
Traveling by bicycle has been our passion. Some say we're addicts, and I guess they're right too. We both did a lot of backpacking before, and with the bicycle it's just a different mode of transport because you see what's between A and B, between a bus stop and a bus stop. You go at your own pace and you have to rely a bit more on yourself.
Cycling exposes you. You don't just see the environment that surrounds you, you experience it. You feel the surface beneath your tires, the wind that forces you to a crawl, or maybe soft rain spraying on your face. And then petrol fumes mingle with perhaps wafts of aftershave and cow dung as you meander through a market town. And then there's all those friendly smiles, those waves and greetings and invitations to stop and chat. Now that's what makes bike touring so special.
I was newly retired and I wanted to go on a long trip while I still could. Now, Africa wasn't going to be the easiest of destinations, with long distances between supplies and rough roads. But as Toby Keith's song goes, don't let the old man in.
Well, after working 15 years on the trot, I was ready for a real break. A break from routine, schedules, meetings, deadlines, but above all, alarm clocks. I was yearning the freedom to do as I pleased, when I pleased. And you have no idea the absolute joy I felt that day my application for unpaid leave was approved. Well, we chose Africa because of the size of the continent, so that we would have a full year without having to fly. We wouldn't be curtailed by climate, and we could cycle away to our heart's content. And it was actually one of those big spaces left on the map that we hadn't already explored. Now, many reactions to our plan were influenced by media headlines, as well as a general concern for our material and physical well-being.
What about your pension?
Remember the famous African proverb, a roaring lion kills no game.
You must be absolutely half mad or totally mad.
Like, there's big things out there, like elephants and stuff, and you're on a bike. Get a grip.
In barren seasons, a cyclist becomes the lion's game.
Typical, you'll get caught in a famine and expect to be repatriated with taxpayers' money.
We were keen to find out for ourselves what Africa is really like.
We started in Angola because it was the country with the most difficult visa application. It was also pleasant temperatures there, at the time, and we'd have spring in Namibia and South Africa, thus avoiding extreme temperatures. We did plot a few highlights on the map, joined the dots, and figured out it would be feasible to reach Zanzibar within a year. So we'd have a carrot to keep us going, nice beach to look forward to. Yeah, that was the plan.
Ja.
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde. A mulher?
Sai, meu filho.
O homem?
Homem.
Não. Ah, tá bom. Tá bom, você tá bom.
Do you feel now, after a year, that you have actually seen inside Africa?
Well, we were in southern and eastern Africa, so we saw inside a section of Africa. By choosing bicycles, you go at a nice slow pace, you get a chance to mingle with the locals, see what makes them tick. You have enough time to experience how they react to foreigners, how they react to their political system.
You stay where? South Africa?
No, Europe.
Europe. I want to go there and stay with you, work in your house. Come there with a car and buy a nice house.
But it must be good to live here in Botswana.
Botswana is not good. Botswana is too much. We are poor here in Botswana. We don't have nothing.
But don't you have loads of diamonds?
We have lots of diamonds, but diamonds are there for rich ones. Sorry. We are not working.
No.
To get food is very tough. If you get food, you must go and do piece job today at the farms.
Yeah.
They give you 100 pula. You come and buy. Maize meal is 100 pula here in Botswana. Things are too much expensive.
The hardships they're going through. So we were exposed firsthand to a lot of Africa and the vastness of the continent. We can't just talk about seeing Africa, because Africa is a continent, it's not a country. And that's something that became very clear as we went along.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences actually. I mean, some live off fishery, others have minerals, some have harbors, some have roads. It's really varied. So, yeah, it's a bit like going from Norway to Sicily. It's not one country.
When we Westerners talk about Africa, do we really know what we're talking about?
Well, I'll be the first to say I fitted into that category before I went to Africa. I had preconceptions. Before I went, people were saying, what, you're going to Africa? But Africa is just in a drought all the time. There's just famine. And so this idea that Africa is just one big desert, suffering from famine, drought, etc., wasn't really what we experienced. We saw huge extremes and variations in climate, vegetation, people's traditions, way of looking at things. We had rainy season for 6 months, for example. We had rainforest, we had savanna. We cycled through national parks that weren't just sand. There was so much vegetation we couldn't see the elephants that were waiting to cross the road, for example. The idea of just cycling through dirt tracks is not the only option you have.
There's a layer of sand on everything. Just look at Court's mat. I've got sand between my teeth.
As a well-travelled man, I can assure you that this doesn't look like the moon at all, but it looks very much like Mars.
By the time you got to Namibia, you'd been how long?
A month.
A month. And then you hit this vastness of nothing. How did you cope with planning that, with stocking up on your bike with provisions or with water?
We knew the kilometers and we knew what we were capable of doing. So, okay, divide it by your kilometers and then you come up with 5 days. So,
of course,
buy food for 6, just for emergency. It's easy to stack up on food. It's not possible to stack up water for 6 days, so you just have to depend on others.
Of course, you don't know what road conditions lie ahead, so you kind of, normally we would do about 70, 75 kilometers a day. In Namibia, we thought, okay, let's reduce it to 50. So we'd go to the supermarket and figure out what is available, what will last. We had biltong, which is a local dried spiced meat, which was wonderful because it was sustenance and it was lightweight. It lasted long. That was our lifesaver. For breakfast, we would have porridge, enhance it with milk powder, nuts, dried fruit.
Honey.
And then for lunch, we'd have biltong with crackers or bread for the first few days. And then we always had some fruit, tomatoes. And then for the evening, we had fresh fruit that wasn't too heavy to carry, like peppers, aubergines, courgettes that we would cook, often with couscous that didn't require an awful lot of water. We were determined we were going to keep our culinary standards high.
You succeeded.
Some might even say what you did was a survival year.
As regards survival, everybody told us, but Africa, you're crazy, the distances, you're going to have to camp wild, which I love, and you're going to have to carry food for 5-6 days, which was true in some places. Survival is a big word. I think we have to believe that we're not out there alone. There's not many places you go where you're just relying on your own resources beyond maybe the Namibian desert.
But even there, you have the interaction just between other tourists, and us. I mean, they're driving around with jeeps full with water and food, and they're in a few hours in the next town. So if you're stuck, they'll give you water, without prompting even.
Yes, because when one watches the video itself, I was struck by the emptiness of it all. I was fascinated by the emptiness of it all. And especially at night when you were in the tent and the sandstorms were blowing and you were partially freezing, I thought this is actually survival. There wasn't anybody, if you'd broken a leg or if you'd become ill, there was no way of contacting people.
It was a nice survival because it was kind of limited. You knew in 300 or 400 kilometers you were going to come to a town. And in that town, that town could mean it's a petrol pump where you could get supplies. And there would be somebody with a jeep that could bring you to a hospital, which could be 8 hours away. I enjoyed every minute of those survival experiences and expedition.
Oof, look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, that's why it was necessary. Show them. All of them.
The road we were on had no hard shoulder and a lot of fast-moving mining trucks that had a busy schedule. Weighing 40 tons, they weren't going to stop in a hurry. So they blew their horn and you hopped off the road if you wanted to survive. This left us with no other option than to move onto sand roads, otherwise known as African massage roads. They were either a bone-rattling experience with corrugations or pushing through deep sand. Then, of course, there was headwind and sandstorms, and with our expedition-style packing, the novelty was wearing thin. I was ready to be airlifted out. There was nothing but sand tracks in every direction, and there wouldn't be a bus to a paved road for another 4 days. I'd had it. I'd reached the wall.
Whose idea was it?
And then we bumped into Flip. Now, we were in Seisriem. Tourists were coming and going in their jeeps to look at these famous sand dunes.
Okay, let's go down. Yep.
And then all of a sudden, there's this 70-year-old beef and sheep farmer clad in full lycra cycling gear. It transpired that with his wife Marieke and his son Phil, they were guiding a group of South African cyclists south to the Orange River, and what he referred to as the most beautiful part of Namibia, and nothing like the worst road in the country that we had just emerged from. His invitation to join the group as far as a tar road with support vehicles to carry our luggage, meals provided, was one we just couldn't turn down.
This is a totally different experience. Cycling with no weight, no panniers, less air in the tires. I'm a new woman. Of course the corrugations are here, but I almost feel as if I'm full suspension. Wow. Well, that was a cold night last night. Definitely below zero.
What followed was 4 thoroughly enjoyable days with this lively bunch of off-road cyclists. With no luggage and all this support, it was a totally different ball game. It was a very special time in a very special part of the world.
You loved being without a watch, without a timepiece.
The freedom of not having appointments, of being a whole year not having to be anywhere. We weren't answerable to anyone. We were doing this because we wanted to do it. We could stop and stay a few days if we wanted. It was our dream, it was our trip, and we could do it on our time. Of course, with such remote areas where the population density is less than 1 person per square kilometre, it doesn't make any economic sense for service providers to extend internet to every corner of the country. This resulting offline experience is when real travel commences. You are forced to be in the here and now. There are absolutely no distractions. It's kind of like back in the 1990s when we relied on snail mail and post restaurant to receive 2-month-old news from home. Now, 30 years later, with mobile phones in our pockets, we were as connected as we could be. Well, when we rattled out of Seisriem that morning with the mountain bikers, the internet was down. And as we entered the mountains, the thunder rolled and the rain came down.
It's raining in Namibia. Can you imagine that?
It was a misht you wouldn't mind being out in. Ireland was calling, but that dreaded message had to do the rounds of cyberspace for 4 long days until we had coverage again. An 8-hour car ride and a 15-hour flight separated us from Dublin. It wasn't to be. The funeral would have to go ahead without us. It was heartbreaking.
As you know, our sister Dorina wasn't able to get back from Africa today for Dad's funeral. However, she's with us today streaming, and she has put together a eulogy for Dad, which I'll read now.
being there for that final farewell was tough. But it was comforting that we had celebrated Daddy's 88th birthday together just before flying to Angola. He was ready to go, and he passed away peacefully in his sleep, in his own bed, in the house he had lived his whole life, on the farm he called home. It was just as he would have wished. So despite having mobile phones in our pockets, life and death went on without us. I guess that's the price you pay for freedom. And there I was, in the remote desert of South Namibia, a perfect place to grieve, let my thoughts roam freely, and remember the good times.
Remember, do not kiss the speed cups. They get bent out of shape every time I do that.
This is not the best place to be.
Whose idea was
That's all because we didn't go straight to the beaches in Mozambique.
We started off fabulously with a mega breakfast from John and Courtney and pancakes to go. Headed out on the road, first car stops, gave us water, offered us anything we wanted in line of food. Second car stops, tops up our water bottles with ice, fills us with fruit. And here we are. South African hospitality is amazing.
Is this something that you found was everywhere? This hospitality, this sharing of oneself?
Yeah. That's a common trait that goes like through the whole different populations, irrespective of color of skin or language they speak at home. There is a lot more interdependability because the whole social structure is based on being connected to people. They don't have a health care system like we do here. They don't have pension schemes. You're part of a structure, be that clan, family, whatever, and you work towards the good of the clan, and the clan is interested in keeping you on.
You are African. We've adopted you in Africa. You are ours.
Okay.
You didn't camp out every night, but nearly every night.
In the beginning, we camped a lot because there weren't other options. Angola, Namibia, because of the distance, it was impossible to get to a safe place or to a campground or whatever. But in East Africa, it was rainy season. A lot of times we would arrive somewhere to camp. They would kind of look at us and was like, gee, they're so old. They would give us an upgrade. We've got upgrades on so many places where they gave us a room for the cost of a tent.
Now, we came to camp, but it has been raining a lot. It's quite wet, there's more rain coming, so they upgraded us to a room.
How's you?
You are just as adventurous in your culinary trade.
Look what we found. Senene, bush crickets. And we have been assured that they are actually tasty.
Senene, and it's so delicious. You are going to enjoy it. Yeah.
You can see the head. You can see the eyes.
Don't taste too bad, actually.
If you had to choose the best dishes that you ate during that year, what would they be?
Well, we definitely ate very well in South Africa.
I would love you to be able to smell this. It's so good. Look at that for a sausage. They know their braais around here, Kurt.
Yeah. But if we're talking about roadside meals, Sapphira.
I think we did hit the best restaurant in town.
I told you I am the best. I just love cooking.
There you go, you can see that.
And I believe cooking is an art.
Yeah, she stands out as a good one.
Have the same again.
It's delicious, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what about this Rolex, which I was completely fascinated by the idea of rolling eggs. Rolex.
Of course, our staple along the road. We cycled in Uganda from Rolex to Rolex.
Roll eggs! Rolex!
In Tanzania, they have something similar, but the Gypsy Malay, I think they call
Gypsy
it.
Malay.
And that's basically French fries in a tortilla.
So chapati was quite a staple, beans were quite a staple, and by 10 o'clock I was always hungry.
Look at her face. Just look at her face. Look at her face, look at her face, look at her face. She sees food.
Samosa. Which Irish food?
Which Irish tradition? What's the verdict?
It's food.
Rice or fries?
Chips plate.
Okay.
Was there never a moment during that year where you craved something from here, from Switzerland?
Of course
Me,
it did.
always. Cheese.
Cheese, you...
Yeah, I mean, sorry, but this Gouda and Edam that you get in South Africa doesn't do much for me. But they did have a few nice Camembert style cheeses.
Really?
But after that, easy singles if you were lucky.
After Lusaka,
Malawi.
with the bicycle.
Yeah.
It's too much.
was up all night and I decided I'm going to starve them buggers. I better go now before I change my mind.
On now to encounters with the natural world.
Well, in the early stages of the trip, we got excited when we saw road signs warning us of all sorts of animals, but the animals themselves were always at a safe distance.
It wasn't until we got to Eswatini that animal encounters became a whole lot more exotic.
Oh my gosh. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, don't run away. Now we have to cross this and beware of crocodiles. You know, you've signs all over the place, beware of crocodiles. You see, this is the crocodile pool. And Court says, well, let's go. And we had been told in advance, just keep cycling. Don't put your foot down because it's slippy and it's mossy underfoot. So you just have to keep cycling. And you, of course, imagine, I'm going to lose grip. What if I fall in? Ah!
When we saw our first fresh elephant dung on the road, we realised the adventure had begun.
We are entering the Elephant Highway.
You don't see them, but they see you.
They're big, those things. Oh!
Nile crocodiles.
Of course, we also enjoyed wildlife in all its forms, from the safety of a safari vehicle in many national parks.
Also waiting.
Two definite highlights for me were coming up close to mountain gorillas and chimpanzees in the wild.
Have you any anecdotes that you would like to remember, tell us about meeting with any of the big five?
Yeah, there's also some that we'd like to forget.
Okay, but these are the ones that are most interesting, of course.
Well, you know, when we hit Western Tanzania, there were police checks along the road. So the police kept saying to us, but you realise there are lions ahead.
And our famous last words were always, by the time we get there, the lions will be under a tree, in the shade of the tree, resting, they'll have eaten, they won't be interested in miserable cyclists like us coming through. So we get to Katavi National Park, which was like a 60-kilometre stretch through the park on a dirt road. And we had a big welcome from tsetse flies.
Excuse my French, but they're real fuckers.
Tsetse flies are a little bit like clags. They're the size of a housefly, but they bite. And they can transmit sleeping sickness.
Yes.
You don't really want them. So we dressed up with long sleeves, long pants. And so Court was like the whole time going like this, biting, swatting along, swatting the flies. And I was aware of all these branches breaking left and side of the road. I kept saying to Court, there are big animals left and right of this road. And Court's like, they're monitor lizards or
and guinea fowls.
And I was like, Court, you just pay attention here. So we're cycling along. Court goes a little bit ahead as I slow down to examine what is it that's making all this noise behind the bush. And they're not 2 meters away from me.
I'm not joking you, but I just passed a lioness. Whoop. I'm sure she wasn't alone, but I wasn't waiting to find out.
And I have to say, my initial awe slowly slow motioned into realization that I'm only 2 meters away, if even, and I'm not in a safari jeep. At which point, for some obscure reason, I didn't panic, I didn't scream, I didn't rush, I
didn't behave like prey.
Just turned and continued cycling, glancing into my rear view mirror to see if I had company or not. It was 1:30 in the afternoon. I guess she had eaten. So I recount that to Court. Court was like, did you take a photograph? I said if I had taken a photograph I probably wouldn't live to tell the tale. At which point it started belting down.
Now I just stopped to cover the camera because of the rain.
Now I'm still swatting tsetse flies, like two dead, two dead, two dead, two dead. That was the rhythm. And that must have started an elephant because there was this big roar coming out and then the breaking of branches and trees and whatever.
Court's ahead, and I've just heard the trumpeting of a very angry sounding elephant. Maybe that's where the action was happening.
So what do? I mean, there's 7 tons. You just try to get away as quick as possible. Not half as serene as Dorina went away from the lion. And I know these elephants can do 40 k's an hour. Luckily this guy was a bit older, I presume, because I can't do 40 k's an hour with a packed bike in pouring rain on a dirt road. So I just did what I could and got a little head start and checked in the rearview mirror and him flapping behind.
Really? He really charged?
For a k.5 he was behind me and then he disappeared. And then I had to figure out what to do because the rhino was, as far as I knew, behind the elephant.
There's a curve in the road so I don't see it. So I start cycling on, I see no bodies strewn on the track, so I guess
Court made puddles with
Court could be in front of the elephant or behind, but I don't know. So I cycle on my merry little way and then...
But you must have been worried. You must have had your heart beat.
Well, I have to say, there was excitement. Because I hadn't seen the elephant. And I had just seen a lion, so I was pumping. I was full of
adrenaline.
Probably adrenaline. I actually wasn't scared.
So I just cycled on a little bit and then luckily a van and a truck came, so I flagged them down to ask them if they can kind of be an escort for Dorina to get past the elephant. We hardly started driving when Dorina appears in the rain, kind of in one piece, and I just went when the other 2 lights just started giggling.
But you know, it's funny. For the whole day afterwards, Court was shattered.
Well, yes, I'm not
This
surprised.
adrenaline kick takes
Yes.
a lot
Out of you. Yes.
It really does.
Yes.
It really does.
Yeah, they look impressive from a Jeep. They look
It's always the
total
same
different
that-
dimension on a
yes,
bicycle.
yes.
It's a humbling experience.
It's cold and it's wet and this is Africa.
Living on top of each other basically for a year. If I think of having to do that with my husband, the mind boggles.
Well, of course, it appears that we were in each other's pockets 24/7. In reality, we set out in the morning after breakfast together. But within a very short period of time, Court is kilometres ahead. I'm trotting along behind, chatting to everyone I meet along the way.
That I did notice, yes.
Hi. Are you making bricks? Yes. Oh, cool. Hello. Uh-huh.
Okay. And how long does it take to dry?
To dry like 5 days.
5 days?
Yes.
So Matthew, how much do you charge for a brick?
A brick it is 150.
And 50. And how many bricks do you need to build a house?
It is about 5,000.
5,000? Oh, so you're a rich man.
We're going all the way to Zanzibar. Do you want to come?
I'll come. Waiting for her was so boring. 19 of the 20 kids that surrounded me gave up after an hour and a half.
And so Court would stop at some stage where you kind of think, oh, I haven't seen Dorina for half an hour, I wonder where is she? And then we'd kind of catch up on what we missed. So I suppose there are times when, of course, Court's getting annoyed because he has to wait.
Yeah, waiting for Dorina. It can be pleasant in the shade, on a bench, playing a Sudoku or reading a book. It can also be fairly narky if I have to wait for her on a busy intersection and she arrives 2 interviews after the estimated arrival time. Yeah, that's when I have to put on a smiley face and just try to forget.
I'm getting annoyed because I'm being told, you're very slow today.
Really should start speeding up a bit, huh? I mean,
It's only 1:30. Would you relax, Court?
yeah. I spent already 3 hours on 25 Ks.
Oh! Why Court suggests we're going to speed up on a road like this? Oh!
Of course, there are times where Court's agenda is maybe to arrive at the next town. My agenda is to experience everything along the way, and if it's Easter Sunday and the people are out dancing on the streets, well, I want to join them. And so, of course, there's friction every now and then. But you get over it.
Yeah, I mean, we're still together.
Yes, of course. Somebody did say cycling and camping with a partner for 3 months is like being married for 30 years. So I think we have
You must
pretty good
have done amazingly
statistics.
well, yes.
We are quite different. Dorina loves wild camping. I do too, but not with the same enthusiasm. This would be my choice. Something with a little comfort, with style, not just a little.
Now, easily known, Kurt isn't the one who's organising accommodation tonight.
Dorina style.
We have a little room, little chalet.
You see the electricity?
Do you still love me?
I'm sure we had worse. Be your best date ever.
What do we do when every Christmas our television screens are flooded with pictures of starving African children? Well, I haven't heard you speak once about having met a starving child.
Well, we did meet children who probably had one meal a day. For them,
Adults too.
Adults, and for them, that was the hungry season. That's what happens in the dry season before the rains come. And they accept that as normal. It's the hungry season. There's an acceptance and a resilience out there that we just will never understand. But what can we do in the West? We can, first of all, see Africa as an equal, eye to eye. We can invest in Africa, create jobs instead of robbing Africa of its resources.
The problem is that the money that goes to Africa is basically for raw materials. And it makes a big difference whether you just export lumps of copper or if you can actually sell copper wires. There's another example in Botswana. I mean, Botswana was also one of these poor countries, and soon after independence they found diamonds, and a lot. And they got contracts, they got the money, they built roads, hospitals, education, whatever. And now the contracts are at the stage of being renewed. And Botswana is claiming ownership of some of these companies, or partial ownership. They forced them to have some of the jobs in Botswana of like cleaning, cutting diamonds and stuff. So the whole thing doesn't have to be exported to India to be cut there, to brought to Antwerp to be sorted and sold around the globe. And all the money that's made is in India and in Belgium. So there's no money made in Botswana as well, jobs created.
Uganda was oozing with all sorts of grassroots projects where locals were returning from university, staying in Uganda and starting up local projects to get their community upskilling. Well, not just Uganda, but Rwanda is a role model for Africa. It's one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And if you take their concept of how to bring Africa back to life after a genocide where in 90 days 1 million people are killed, and how to build up an economy after that. To take Paul Kagame's words, Africa needs to be free. And Africa will only be free if we stop pumping foreign aid into the continent, making Africa even more dependent on the West. It's the only way it's going to happen. That's what a lot of these small projects have realized. The government might not be doing a lot for them, but they're taking it into their own hands. As long as we pump aid into Africa, Africa is dependent on us.
And as long as we do that, we are looking on Africa as being inferior. We're not giving Africa a chance to stand on its own 2 feet, to show what they want, where they can go.
The West can help by investing in Africa, because creating jobs creates also a need for education. So parents will see that sending their children to school is a better investment in their future than pulling them out of the education system to go fishing, often at the subsistence level and with donated mosquito nets.
You would ask them, so what is the solution for Zambia? What is the solution for Malawi? And they would clearly say, and I'm talking about 11, 12-year-olds, education.
Kilimanjaro!
Karina is getting chirpier and I'm getting grumpier. Just want to get to Zanzibar and sit on the beach. The wind is so bad now. I'm struggling in gear 4. Just not enjoying headwind and gravel anymore. It's almost annoying to see Karina in such a cheerful mood. Some sense of achievement too, huh?
So, we're at the beach in Pangani. We're just short of 15,000 kilometers, and we still have Zanzibar to go. So, wonderful.
I have a feeling this is going to be a hell of a ride. Court has been dreaming about this for weeks.
Has this year changed your outlook on life in general?
Absolutely. It showed me how simply we can live, how we can actually get through a whole year without buying anything except food and drink. With 2 t-shirts, 2 shorts, a couple of shirts, and a long pair of pants, a pair of sandals and a pair of shoes, you're sorted. I get the feeling that here in Europe we're all on a hamster wheel. We just go with the flow. We do what everyone else is doing and we don't stop the world to get off to figure it from a different angle. And I think when you go on a trip like ours to a totally different continent where you're exposed, you're humbled, you're challenged, you see life from the outside. And then you can question why people live the way they do now.
Of course, being able to travel for a full year in any place makes you aware of the fact that you're privileged, because you have the means to do it and you have a passport that allows you to cross borders, and you have the curiosity.
One of the most important lessons I learned on this trip is the danger of a single story, because it simply doesn't paint the full picture. Africa, for example, is not riddled with crime, as the media would lead us to believe. Our experience was a continent brimming with genuine kindness and an amazing joie de vivre that brought a huge smile to our faces on a daily basis. It's also time to move away from the single story of the helpless dark continent reliant on Western aid. Many African countries have already taken the lead with mobile banking, climate solutions and entrepreneurship. The West needs to give Africa a chance.
There's no denying that it was challenging at times.
pushing through deep sand basically equals being pushed out of your comfort zone. And I don't really like that. I did reach my limits every now and then. I was reminded that I'm not 20 anymore. And occasionally I wondered how I could sell a shortcut to the arena. But then the ego steps in and says, don't be so slack. So I wasn't. Didn't let the old man in.
As long as your head is stronger than the pain.
As long as your head is stronger than your pain, you can do things. Okay.
Yeah.
Still doesn't mean that I have to do 369 kilometers in 23 and a half hours. Still, reaching the end in Zanzibar was great. A holiday and no more challenges. Now, working on this video, I have to say, I'm game for another trip.
Whose idea was it, really?
Serena Farrell, I have an announcement to make.
What's up, court paper?
You brought me on a route with 92 climbs in the first 2 weeks. I tell you, you're not well in your head.
That's not true. You've only had 28 climbs out of a total 38. And can I remind you, you're responsible for this route. And be happy. This is paved. This is a brand new road.
You wanted to go to this continent. I would have preferred a flatter one.
Like Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan.
Africa was Darina's idea.
And finally, are you planning to go back to Africa? And if so, where would you go?
We don't have immediate plans. We could go back to Africa for another year, include the same 15 countries and have a completely different route. That would probably be just as rewarding and exciting and adventurous.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Good morning, Africa!
You're filming again. This time with the cover off. Good girl.
This is going to be with no sound, so you can say whatever you like.